Just to start off, both Avery and Ribby, tell me about like where you're coming from. What's your hometown? How did you find Reed? And how did you make that decision to become a Reedy?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Bend, Oregon. So I've lived in Oregon my whole life, and I'm still in Portland now. I really like it here. So for me, I'm actually a first gen college student. No one else in my family has gone to college. I honestly did not know what I was doing in my college search. Like I applied to two colleges, which thinking back now is like insane. I'm sure that all of you, many of you probably had a very different experience. But I think that for me, like visiting was really important, and also just like hearing from current students really helped me make that decision, and I just felt at home on campus.
So, as a first gen student, what would you have done differently about your Reed experience as you think about coming to Reed when you went to Reed and your first year? Like, what would you have done differently, and what advice would you give to some of our current our students that are on the call?
Reed has so many resources. Like the professors are great resources. There's lots of really great student resources for you as well in both academics and social things. And I wish that I would have taken more advantage of those early on. I was like, oh, those resources aren't for me. I don't need them. But then later on, I was like, no, like those resources are for you and they're there. And once I started taking advantage of those, office hours, tutoring, going to more clubs, I was like, made such a big difference. And it's not like resources are for certain students, it's like they're for everyone and you should use them.
How about you, Ribby? How'd you find Reed? How'd you end up making the decision?
I'm from South Korea. So I couldn't really visit any colleges, and I really wanted to take advantage of the early decision process, which is if you get an acceptance letter from a college you are committed to go. So I applied to one college. So when Avery applied to two, I applied to one. So that's really not the typical college application process either. I know Reed was known for its academic rigor, and especially I know that they had a very good physics department. And also, I looked at the rates of what students do after graduating, and it's a very high percentage of going on to PhD research. And since I was already looking into long-term research, that's even, yeah, I looked past my 4 years at Reed and I was like, Reed is going to prepare me for my PhD if I hopefully get into any, and I did.
How would you describe the reputation a Reed student might have once they leave college?
So I work at OHSU, which is a university that does a lot of research, and they're constantly hiring Reed students. I actually have a current Reed student working in my lab now. They're fantastic. And people are often very excited to hire Reed students, especially in the sciences. We get so much hands-on lab experience that like, I feel like straight up, like you apply in the sciences for a job, and you're like, oh, like they know that you're going to know how to do lab work. So it's been very helpful in getting jobs and also in hiring people.
You know, the experience of coming to Reed as a liberal arts institution, and you go off and you go to other places, and whether it be, again, whether it's working or in other programs, that the skills that you develop that are not discipline specific but a bit more well-rounded actually helps you to get helps you be more noticed, I would say, in the work that you're doing, and also sometimes with the employers that are looking for Reed graduates. We think about critical thinking. We think about what people nowadays, well, in the past would call soft skills, which are no longer soft skills. These are just necessary skills to have as you make the transition into industry or working or into graduate programs and things of that nature. The thing that I heard about Reed graduates before I even got to Reed was this sense of like they're well-rounded, they're positioned really well to be able to make change happen wherever they go, and they have the skills. They have these inherent developed skills from their experience that really propels them to even more success after they leave the college.
One of the soft skills, but I think very important skill that I think I took from Reed is how to communicate with people. So I think I gained a pretty high standard of, oh, this is how I want to be communicating with my advisor or friends. And Reed really get to know your thesis advisor, and even during the class, and the professors know you, and you can always go into their office hours and, like a one-to-one. I need help with this problem, or just I don't know what classes to take. So that kind of personal relationship I really brought to my graduate school, and it's what I wanted to see with my advisor. And I think I currently have that kind of relationship, personal and professional.
So a few things I just want to point out for our viewers. We're sitting talking a lot about grad school, and in some ways making some assumptions that you know a few things about Reed. And if not, why is this a topic? One of the things we talk about is Reed ranks fourth in the nation for sending students on to get their PhD per 100 students. So per capita, Reed sends more PhDs than every other school except for MIT, Caltech, and we go back and forth with Swarthmore. So that's more than Harvard, Stanford, you name it. And so we always talk about we're punching above our weight. And if you do well at Reed, then you'll do well anywhere. And I always go back and I say, hey, but you don't have to do grad school if you don't want to. But this ability about being successful is within your grasp. And Avery, I think you're a great example. You're a researcher right out of undergrad.
I'm not planning on going to grad school. And I feel like Reed has set me up well so that, and I feel comfortable doing research, and I have those research skills that I could build off of. I think that a lot of it is kind of what Ruby was talking about, just feeling comfortable making those connections with people, and not like, I'm not afraid to talk to like people with PhDs or advisors, I know that I can do research on my own with the Reed thesis project. So you really still get that hands-on research and just independence. So I felt really prepared coming out of undergrad. And I think that there are lots of different paths out there.
Can y'all give one or two examples of kind of what we've talked about outside of the sciences of people we know? And Cornell, maybe you too, if you know any folks.
As I said, I've had the opportunity to connect with various alums, whether they're going and working in a nonprofit work. Some even, as I even think about our current students who ask, the questions about, they are in humanities, they're taking a humanities, they have a humanities major, and they're like, I actually want to go and teach. I want to teach school. I want to teach in high schools. I want to teach in K-12. And so students go there. The interesting thing I would also add to this is that when at least right now, when our first year students come to campus, they get connected with the Center for Life Beyond Reed, and we have these things called communities of purpose. And the whole point of the communities of purpose is to help students explore just different pathways, not connected necessarily to your particular major, but to really think about ways that you can actually engage and actually contribute in whatever you are going to do beyond the college. And so they are really good about making sure that students get connections with folks who are not just the sciences, but also, as I said, whether it be in industry jobs and things of that nature, whether it's, we have, even with computer science and things of that nature, if, folks going and working for Microsoft or Google, folks who go into HR work as well, who are doing psychology. The pathway isn't just the standard, you go from point A to point Z, but there's a lot of things that I think our students do in between.
So I have a question for y'all, and we kind of get this a lot, and I know y'all have heard this whole idea that Reed, our de-emphasis on grades may result in a lower GPA. How did that work out for y'all? In particular, does that affect your ability to get admitted to a prestigious school who may not be familiar with Reed's approach?
It was nice to know what you got as a grade, but that wasn't really my interest at Reed. A thing I felt was if I did a test, and even before I got it back, I kind of knew what I was going to get. We do check our grades just to see whether we're doing okay, just kind of feel like a peace of mind, but it was never like a thing to keep track of your grades. I mean, at least for me, I just focused on just doing well, and if I focused on that, I did a I did get a fair grade.
The conversation that students had really just wasn't grade centric. Like Ruby said, you always kind of knew what you were going to get. And there was always so much feedback. You can check your grades at any point, right? And you're always getting like some sort of score on what you're getting back. It's not like you just handed, like if I took an exam, I would not be handed back an exam with just like notes on it. I would still get some sort of scale to see like, am I on track or am I not on track? It might just not be like, you have got like 78% or whatever. But it didn't affect me when applying for jobs or anything. Like no one even asked for my transcript at all. They're like, oh, you went to read, like, here's your thesis. Like, okay. Maybe Ruby's experience was different when applying to grad school, but no, I always felt like I knew how I was doing. I just wasn't like, what'd you get on that exam? I got this, So
The part that I love about Ruby and Avery's answer, they're like, grades. And I know high school students are like, grades. It's so awesome to see how you sort of transition to say like, the focus is on learning, right?
Exactly.
The focus is on the ideas. And for y'all, I'm sure like the first year it might have been hard, but by the time you all become alumni, you're like, what? Do you notice that? It's so like transitional. I love it.
I mean, sometimes though, it was a transition though, going from like, oh, I got a grade, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm getting all this feedback, and well, what is the grade to your first semester? What did I get? And so, I mean, I would say that still is somewhat a transition period for our first year students as they come in, as we're trying to make that adjustment. But again, a lot of our students are coming here because they're like, oh, I can truly focus in on learning and engaging and not being worried about, oh, did I get this specific grade? Or, and it also just takes the pressure off too, I think, in some sense, for faculty and the students to actually engage in just meaningful dialogue about the subject, the content matter, things of that nature. So
the thing I've been telling people is that Reedies know about subject matter like they just studied for the test. A class that you took 2 years ago, I asked you all about it. You talk about it like you just studied for the test. And high school students know what that means the next day after you study for a test where you know everything and 3 days later it leaks out of your head. With Reedies, it's completely different. You capture these concepts because your relationship with the knowledge is different because you weren't just memorizing everything. You're actually having conversations with your faculty.
What was life off campus like for y'all?
So my third and fourth year, I really started using the Great Friendship resource. It's free. You get into a lottery and you get picked, but honestly, I don't think people use it enough. So I like went on trips every 2 weeks my senior year.
You gotta explain what it is, Ribby, because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so Great Friendship is like a resource where students can put in their names, and every week there's like every other week there's something special, like a trip or like an event or a show that it's paid for. So students get to experience these things. I've been on a couple free skiing trips. Yeah, I was just having a lot of fun my senior year. While I was writing my thesis, I was like, I want to do fun stuff like outside of my writing sessions. But also on campus, I did activities like spinning fire. I don't think that's a very common thing anywhere.
Honestly, one of my main recreational activities, both in college and still now living in Portland, is just eating. Like the food around the city is so good. I was always going off campus with friends, trying to find new spots to eat. On campus, like if you have a little bit of time, there's the pool hall. I would go down there sometimes. And also like, if you are into outdoor stuff, like there's so many cool outdoors things to do in the area. I feel like there's like 5 different biomes in Oregon that you can explore all of them. And I think that Reed also helps you like introduce you to a lot of those things. Like I took an archery PE class, got really into archery. I still go to the archery range in Portland, and I never would have picked up that hobby.
I mean, we have an outdoor, we have the outdoor program, and at the collective, folks can actually just rent equipment and it's free. You don't have to pay anything. You just rent equipment for outdoor experiences and things of that nature. And again, the number of clubs and orgs that the Office for Student Engagement puts on, I mean, they help support a lot of the student-ran clubs.
I think one of the things that Everyone wants to know when they're starting college. The whole goal of college is to be successful and to make sure that after you're done, you have a career, you're going to be gainfully employed, that you're going to have opportunities. And so a lot of it comes down to security. Is there anything you can do to help reassure our students about what the outlook would be if they were to become a Reed student?
I haven't had a point where I've been like, well, what am I going to do next? Like, I can't find, I don't have any connections to try and find another job. I don't have any network. Like, I constantly am seeing like new jobs and opportunities being posted on like Reed boards, both for actual jobs and also just like mentorship. Like, hey, like I'm interested in this career path. Can anyone give me some sort of advice? I feel like there's a really big support network for that. And I've also helped like connect other people to positions as well. And I think that, I don't know, there's a good community for that.
I wish I went to the Center for Life Beyond Reed a bit more. It's there. I don't see it used often, but I know they have so many things to offer of job opportunities, or even like how to do an interview. Like I think from what I remember, they train you and do little mock interviews.
That was a big emphasis, as you say. I think earlier, say a few years ago, like the college noticed that first year students weren't actually getting engaged as quickly enough, and so that's why now we put them and partner them right away with someone from Center for Life Beyond Reed as a way to help them connect to, again, these communities of purpose, but then also things like, let's talk about internships and fellowships, and they consider the academic year in the sense like you have 8 semesters and then you have three summers to actually do some really cool stuff. And so they want you to try to find and get connected and do research and do an internship or go study abroad or find a fellowship that pays for you to go study abroad. And I mean, they do some good summer enrichment opportunities in between too. So they're all about trying to make those connections, take what you learn in the classroom and then make it applicable to the things that you are most interested in.
Tell me what you find to be particularly unique about Reed alumni that you've met, that you've connected with, sort of a quality that makes them stand out.
When I'm having conversations with prospective students and admitted students, one of the things I talk about is purpose and impact. And every conversation that I have with an alum, they're actually thinking about other people, like what they're doing, regardless whether it's a PhD program, whether it's working in industry or whatever job. It always comes back to they want to actually make the world a better place. I just get so excited about I'm like, our alums are movers and shakers, and they really are going to change the world. Like, I want to see some Nobel Peace Prizes. I want to see some of the, they're doing some cool stuff that I would have never thought that would be the thing, but I can see that actually making a huge impact. And so that's one quality that, again, you take the liberal arts experience, you take the discipline that students are focused in on. And when they leave the college, they are just positioning themselves to actually really have an impact. And our students, we hear the thing that Reedies take care of Reedies. That extends beyond the college because they truly are trying to make a huge impact in the world. And sometimes that sounds so cliche, but it's actually demonstrated. You can go point to any alum and ask them what they're doing, and you'll be like, wow. Like, they are changing the world. They're changing the way we do things. And it's actually meaningful. So,
I couldn't agree more. And they have the capability to do this. When I talk to Reed alums, they say, and I did this, and then I did this. And that is the one thing I noticed about Reed alumni is that you just talk about the next path in your course, not like, and then I wanted to, but I couldn't, And so that's the one thing that I noticed about y'all.
That resilience, that determination, the entrepreneurial spirit,
the confidence with your knowledge.
Confidence.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, when to be honest with you, when folks ask about a Reed student or a Reed student's working in some job and they're like, how can I get more of these? How can I get more Reedies at my job? Or how can I get in the pipeline to have more? I'm like, there's always opportunities. So come on.